Welcome, everybody. It's 19th of December, 2023, and it is time for our every Tuesday live Q&A AMA, though today, instead of Ask Me Anything, it's going to be Ask Us Anything. A special guest will be joining momentarily. Your favorite, my favorite, Dr. Nick. But first, as always, a special thanks to the growing list of Patreon supporters that we have. These are our paid Patreons. We also have free. You are welcome to join Patreon for free. You're going to get all the stuff. You're just going to get it a little bit later. So patreon.com/CXCC, and our paid levels start at $1 a month. So it's certainly relatively inexpensive and easy to show some financial support for this channel and all the content that I put out for you. I don't do this for me. So we already have some questions. We might not get to everyone's questions today. We've got so many, but if you do have a question, you can send it to deltacx.com/links. Oops, sorry, my internet's being a little blippy. If we don't get to it today, I will try to do a show the day after Christmas, and we'll cover everybody's questions then. And if you miss it, you can always find these shows archived on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CX-CC, which is for customer experience, customer centricity. So first, let's welcome Dr. Nick, and then we'll put up our first question. Nick, how you doing? Happy holidays.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Wouldn't be the same without you. I'm just going to turn up your volume in my system a little bit in case people think you sound quiet. All right, let's put up our first question. It is very long. Sorry that people won't be able to read it. Nick, I've actually sent it to you as a LinkedIn message because it's so long. So I don't know if you're multitasking and can open up LinkedIn. I'm going to read it out loud. Here we go. Yeah. Hi, I'm working as a UX designer on an enterprise product. This means we can talk with our users when we work on a new feature and ask or observe relatively easy their current workflow or let them try a new design idea. However, until now, we have done it mostly for relatively big and new changes. What I'm struggling with is doing it for smaller features or improvements because I'm not sure how to set up the usability testing in this case. Like, it feels like it'll be so small and quick. What would I ask them to do that it will feel like I'm not respecting their time? For instance, we have pages with information grouped thematically in different buckets. Now one of the buckets is read-only, and it displays a list of tasks with related details. Usually, the new design should allow users to edit the details. Usually, they can click to put an entire bucket in edit mode to change information, but for technical reasons, each task will need to be edited separately. I'm unsure how to display the edit mode for just one task in the bucket, for instance, whether in the bucket or in a modal, but how do I test just this very specific question with the users? Should I organize UT sessions to let them try to edit and show them versions? It feels like it would be so out of the actual context of use, it might not bring good data. Hi, Ana Lucia.
Wow. Good question, though. Great. There's a lot in there. That's a dense question, and I mean that in terms of density, not thickness. Great question. Okay, there's 3 questions in there as I can see it. There's 2 really big sections, like the top half and the bottom half, and then there's a little addendum. So let's just do the top half bit first, which is kind of your overriding question, which is, how do I do small feature work? Which is what I think basically what we're saying, because when you do a big feature, I think what you're saying is it's you've got more to do and more time to use, and therefore it's a more substantial thing, right? And that makes lots of sense. I think where you might be overthinking this is that doesn't change for a small thing. But, and this is probably me giving you permission, which is crazy, and it shouldn't have to be this way. You don't need to do 45-minute or hour or 2-hour sessions. They can be 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. They can still be 10, 15 and not be gorilla. Okay, that's a really big point. Okay, everybody thinks if it's quick, it's gorilla. No, because gorilla is really off the cuff, like hallway type stuff. We're talking about something a little more structured and a bit more insightful. Not insightful.
Am I streaming? Can anyone tell me if we're still live? Uh-oh. I might have lost Nick. Hello? Am I live? Better check. Oh, we are live.
I'm back.
Okay, sorry about that, Nick. I did have an internet blip that kind of kicked both of us out temporarily, but the stream seems to still be going on YouTube. Thanks, everybody. Nick was in suspended animation. Yeah, sorry about that. My internet was blipping, and I tried to make a change, and so I think I made it worse before I made it better. So I apologize, Nick, that we interrupted what you were saying, but I was loving what you were saying. So can you?
I don't know
where
it was at.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay, basically shorter, more.
Yes, you say you call
testing.
them chats. It's much easier to get into someone's calendar for 30 minutes than a long session.
And that's basically in the past 2 or 3 years post-pandemic, and I tend to be doing lots more remote work. Getting into people's diaries is, for whatever, much harder. Chat being much more informal, more casual. It's my belief that you get you can establish rapport quicker, and establishing rapport quicker and better always delivers better insight, just because people are coming from a place of honesty and truth, or at least objectivity, or I don't know, whatever you want to call that, instead of construction and BS and fairy tales, which can often happen. So that's the first part, right? Just be quick about it. The second one, I'm not going to spend the time, or maybe I should let Deb take over, because the second bit is more about interaction design and solving the actual problem of bucket editing and all of that. Without going to actual details of solving that particular design or interaction design or UX problem, if you're doing 15, 20-minute rapid things, you don't care about whatever that problem is, because you've got a repeating testing cycle ahead of you. And as long as you can do that, you can test and test and test and iterate until you get things good. And guess what? That's called agile. So that's really what we're talking about here, is take your problem, come up with a hypothesis or an idea to try to solve, stick it in front of users, see how they perform, learn from that, do it quickly in 10 minutes, go away, get another person, do another 10 minutes, share the new one, not one person, but 5 or 6, 8, you'll start to find out what the major issues are really quickly and be able to iterate really quickly. And before you know it, you've gone from not knowing what to do with bucket editing to a very workable, tested solution that should go to dev. Bosh, job done. I think that's it. Over to you, Deb.
And I totally want to agree with that. And I wrote down one note before we super blipped, and that was, I think a common mistake I see with some testing like this, and apologies to the person who asked the question, you don't sound like a newbie, but I'm just going to put this out there in general, is I see people say, well, I'm just going to run a short test where I'm going to ask them to edit the bucket. And then I'm going to see what they think of editing the bucket. But what I want to advise you is really what Kelby wrote in the chat. Kelby wrote, make it contextual within a workflow. The side observations will allow you to get some strategic UT insights. And so I want to make sure that you don't just pull people into a thing, show them the screen and go, please edit this bucket. You have to think about what their full task normally is, or what's on the other side of editing the bucket. You need to reorder things under this group, or you need to enter data for what, I don't know what it is, but I can only say, do not make the mistake of testing editing the bucket by asking people to edit the bucket. Give them whatever is beyond that in the task and see if they can figure out, oh, I need to edit this bucket. Where and how do I edit this bucket? Uh-oh, it looks like it's different than it was before, etc. So that's my piece of advice that I wrote down. But otherwise, I thought Nick had a lot of good ideas there, reminding you can do short stuff and friendly stuff, and this doesn't have to be exceedingly formal.
Can I just add one thing? In this
Sure.
world of AI, and I'm like, doing things short has massive benefits, because if you're using AI, which you probably all are or should be trying to use, you need to be double checking all of that. Okay, it's not just me telling you this, everybody's telling you this. Double check your AI, because we're the insight generators. If we create fairy tales or the AI creates it on our watch and we don't catch it, it's on us, right? So doing short stuff means you've got a much easier mind space for you to understand, but most importantly, to compare the human intelligence with the artificial intelligence. Okay, when you come to double check, if you've got massive long 2-hour transcript or whatever to watch back, you try doing that. I mean, I have been trying to do it and it sucks badly. So keep things short and it gets a lot easier for you.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of AI, but I agree. You know, sometimes with things like this, I might even do something unmoderated, and you get back a 5-10 minute video from people, and you watch that video and you go, boom, I know what the answer is here, and you write, you know, a 2-slide report. So again, this doesn't have to be long and formal. Okay, go ahead.
You know what? Let me draw a quick graph. Here's a quick graph, right?
The graph.
This is my opinion, okay? Massive caveat. This is pure opinion, okay? In most sessions, this is probably the way the insight goes. Like, you probably get a ton in the first 10-15 minutes. And I'm not saying it isn't always like this, because sometimes somebody will say something absolutely genius in the magic one question at the end down here, right? Right. But the point being is often there's filler, things are going on, and actually in your head, in my head, I'm going, you know what, I've got what I need, let's get out of here. Do you know what I'm saying? And the rest of the time is just getting what you can.
These are my sessions.
You think it's like that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
My sessions, amazing crap happens at every moment in mine, but especially towards the end where people are feeling increasingly comfortable. So since I'm like this, so I would have to say, you know, sessions are what you make of them and the participants that you get. But the bottom line is find those insights and give people strategic advice. What do you got there, Nick?
That's just the peak. I can't even draw this. The peak bit, and then I'm bored, not bored, but my mind is struggling for the rest of the session. Actually, this is why I'm just, for me, my style, my research, the kind of research questions that I'm investigating, this super light style of research, it's working for me and the AI tooling that I'm using. That's as of today, and like I said, our world is changing at quite a pace.
Excuse me.
Like, if the pandemic wasn't enough to really mess with user research, here comes AI just to really put the icing on. Welcome,
right.
Zhao.
Yeah, next question. Thank you for that question. Shorter question. Debbie, they didn't know it would be a Dr. Nick day. I like the way you think and approach problems and UX in general and UX research in particular. I'd like to see how you analyze usability testing and write the report. Is there a video or a session regarding moderated usability testing? Please consider making one if there is not. Thank you very much. Okay, so since this is a little bit about me and my videos and my content, the answer here is I have not done this yet because I don't have any data that I'm comfortable broadcasting on YouTube. I cannot show previous projects. I can't show the videos from them. I can't show the analysis from it. I can't show my report. Everything is under NDA. So I think what we would have to do is, some of you might remember, is about maybe 2 years ago, we did a series of micro lessons back on the Delta CX channel, and we did a fake generative research project where we planned it, and then we had a bunch of you join as live sessions that we had on YouTube, and I showed how I take notes, and then we did more stuff with it afterwards, but it wasn't usability testing. So I think at some point I will need to create a fake usability testing project, get some of you to join in as free peeps who don't mind me putting this up on YouTube, and we'll have to work from that data, you know, fake as it is. And so I no for now, but yes, eventually I just have to plan this and rope some of you into being play acting my participants. Yes, but go back to the micro lessons playlist on the Delta CX channel for the other research we did last time, the worst session was with my husband, who thought it was his time to shine and kept making a lot of jokes, and I wanted to fire him. And the best session was actually Joel Barr, who of course is a researcher, but I said, can you please play the role of sometimes someone who gives too short answers and sometimes someone who gives long-winded running answers, and I'll show how I try to keep this session in control and how I need to ask you follow-up questions because you give too short answers. So the Joel Barr one, I think he put on a fake nose at some point. It was like a piggy nose or something. Look for that one in the micro lessons. That was great. All right.
I want to be I want to be one of your fake participants because I think I could role play some some absolute classic archetypes of our time. You know what I mean? I bet you could too.
That.
I think we all could.
I did that yesterday. I did that yesterday with my team. We're doing our first 21 sessions this week of a longer study that we're doing, and we're gonna have to continue it after the holidays with 60 more sessions. But I now have Kayleen and Sirocco on my team at my new job, and we brought them in as contractors. Freaking yay! And yesterday I pretended to be the subject. I made up all kinds of answers, but there were times where I was like, can I click this? And they had to figure out, what do they say to that? And, what do you mean by that? And they're, so I tried to, throw them off a little bit for practice. So yeah, role playing is delicious.
Love that you called them subject. You called yourself the subject. Like,
I am.
Lovely 1960s psychology language.
I'm the participant.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry, darling. So, and Kelby is volunteering too. Okay, next question. And I know where this one comes from, so thank you to the person who asked it. What are your thoughts on give people a chance, even for those looking for their first junior level role, and for someone who's done great UX work, getting mentoring and going above and beyond than what boot camps teach them. So Nick, I know what this came from. This came from a LinkedIn post from someone I won't name, who basically said, like, stop saying, give me a chance. And so I guess the question is, how do you feel about juniors who sometimes in their writing or in things they say, take the attitude of, okay, I'm new, but give me a chance?
I must be missing something here because
someone on LinkedIn seemed to be kind of against the idea that people would say, give me a chance, and was recommending that you not say that.
Yeah, I can't think of an argument against, like, why? Like, everybody deserves a chance. Like, the industry needs fresh blood. It's the same as any other industry. And we live in an extremely ageist industry that doesn't really like old people. So therefore, younger folk have definitely got more opportunity than people like us, maybe. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Like, yeah, everybody deserves a chance. Everybody deserves a second chance, and maybe even a third or fourth chance, in my case. So, yeah, that's it. That's an easy one for me.
And I didn't comment on that post because I disagreed. And so I think that... so there's 2 points I want to make here. One is, if you're a junior hoping to get a job and you're saying to the person, hey, I can do this. I have the skills you're looking for. I have a little bit of experience. Give me a chance. Then Matthew says, if we can give AI a chance, let's give some humans a chance. Yeah, I don't blame you there. I think giving people a chance is a great idea. I'm for it. But I also know that if you don't have the skills the job is looking for, then they can only give you a chance if they have people in place to mentor and coach you. And some jobs have that in place and some don't. If the jobs have seniors or leads or a manager who's going to look in on your work and help you level up and continue giving you that support, then yeah, I do want to give you a chance. But if we don't have that in place and you would just be thrown in the deep end, then sometimes I can't give that person a chance. And quick story, at my current job, I was allowed to hire a student worker. And my first thought before we interviewed people was, I'm going to find the person who needs the chance the most. I'm going to find the person who who from their CV or resume I think really needs this chance. And then when I learned that I was being put on one of the most important projects at the entire university and the pressure I was under, I said, I don't think I can do that. I think right now I have to find somebody who is a junior, who's done a little bit of this before, so that they're not coming in completely cold, needing complete training. So we found this wonderful, wonderful person who's just starting her master's degree where I'm working. And even though her bachelor's was in medical anthropology or something like that, sorry, Caitlin, I might have that wrong. She had spent some time working at Blink UX in Seattle running interview sessions. She never had to plan the interview sessions and she never had to analyze them, but she ran the interviews. And I said, good. This is someone who's done hundreds of interviews. I'm going to have to give that person a chance. And then the other story that I want to tell is when I was trying to get my first job in San Francisco, it was very hard. I was often, even though I had extensive experience, it was as a consultant and an outside company, and people didn't take my experience seriously. And finally, I got my first job interview, which happened to be with Sony Ericsson at the time. And I went in and I said, look, I can show extensive experience, but I can't show corporate experience. I've just moved to San Francisco. I don't have traditional corporate experience, but I have extensive experience. Here's my portfolio. Here's projects I've done. I'm dying to show you how well I can do this. Would you please give me a chance? And I got the job. Now, I don't think I got the job because I said, will you please give me a chance? Maybe they appreciated my honesty. Maybe they liked my previous work. So I think that ultimately it's not about whether or not you say, give me a chance. Either the person is in a position to give you a chance, or they're in a position where they just need a certain level of expertise and cannot give someone more junior a chance. That's how I see it.
I'll be straight with you all. No one has given me any kind of a chance at any point during my career. Okay? If you look at my CV, my CV completely matches what you see on LinkedIn, unlike most people.
That's another story.
Mine is factual representation. You'll see I started off with my PhD once I defended it as a user experience executive at Liverpool Victoria, an insurance company here in the UK. I was the first UX person in the building. No one gave my PhD any credibility or value or the psychology. There's no chance given, i.e. we can't see the opportunity that this guy can bring or the perspective that they give. None of that. So I and most people, I think, I was about to call it the hard way, but it isn't the hard way. It's the right way, which is climbing that experience ladder that we talk about so often. It's learning on things. So if you can get a chance, if someone gives you a chance to like jump a couple of those steps, you're probably actually shooting yourself in the foot. So getting a foot in the front door, I understand, is particularly challenging, and the market is difficult right now. So yeah, other than that,
and ultimately I don't think you're going to get a job or not get a job by saying give me a chance or avoiding saying give me a chance. Like, I don't think that's what gets someone a job. No. I said it once, it worked for me. I'm unlikely to say it again.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in dating terms or something. It's really unattractive. It seems really needy and desperate. Like, oh, please give me a chance.
Please, Nick, please, just coffee.
Please, give me a chance. I can be better. No. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
I'm so
maybe
lovable.
Maybe it works on Tinder. But other than that, give me a try. But that's a different proposition. Let's move along, shall we?
All right, so let me pull up the next question and let's see. Here we go. That cut off the bottom, but I think you can tell what it says. Hi, what if the product I'm working on is a company internal tool and the user base is rather small, like only 2 or 3 people do certain tasks and therefore are the only ones that are going to use a certain feature we're developing? Does it make sense to test only with them, or should I still aim to get more people to increase the likelihood that the concept is valid and usable for other future users? Nick.
Yes, that you answered your own question. The last sentence, yes. That's the answer. Yeah, you're only going to. But what if Bob and Mary are off for the day, or sick, or leave the company? That might be a multi-million-dollar system or something super critical. It probably is, right? Only 2, 3 people are doing it. Maybe it's a finance thing. I don't even know. It doesn't matter. It's probably a high value function, or it's part of a supply chain, or it's just part of the mechanics of business. Other people are going to be using that tool unless they replace the tool. Whilst that tool is in service life, it needs to be resilient in who's using it, and as you rightly said, other future users. You also don't know about scaling. The company might need more than 2 people to start using that and hire a team of 10, or license it to another company and white box it and all kinds of fun stuff, right? In which case it needs to work for other than just Bob and Mary. So yeah, that's it really.
Yeah, and I think what I would add to that is if you're truly, truly stuck, then okay, it's these 2 to 3 people. But my question is sometimes look at the ecosystem around those people. Do they have assistants? What about their manager? Is their manager ever in this tool? Sometimes no, sometimes yes. Does customer support ever have to go into this tool and perform, or sales or account success? Do other people ever have to go into the tool with a customer or as a customer and take care of these things? So take a look at who else is involved in this task. And then my other question would be, can you recruit from outside of your company? Are there other people with other jobs out in the world who do this task? For example, we did some research a few years ago at a different job that I had, and it had to do with people who worked at large African companies who were in charge of checking the data on pay equity. Lots of conversations happening about that in Africa. And so it turned out the company I was working with thought we had to interview executives. But once we started doing that, we learned the executives aren't really in the tool, but their assistants are, their teams are. And so we really should have been interviewing all those people who do that day-to-day data work, because the executive just gets a report or a summary. So can you recruit from outside your company, from people who use similar types of systems or have a similar task they need to accomplish, if you are allowed to show this, even with the logo and stuff taken off, to people, anonymize it and say, hey, I'm just working with a research company and we need to show this to people, and you never tell them what company you're with. So these are possible. They may or may not work for you, but I would say definitely, like Nick says, be a little creative and see if you can find some other people using this, because someday someone might join that team, or the people there might quit, or new people might take on the task. Okay, next question. When I'm planning a research session, I always feel not very confident in the questions I come up with. I think they're okay from a theoretical point of view. They're not leading, they're open, but I'm not sure that they're complete or that I'm covering the right areas. Is there like a series of topics or points to keep in mind when interviewing people about tasks and goals and context?
That's okay. Okay, this is a great question. This is a really good question.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm not putting words into Debbie's mouth, but I'm pretty confident that I speak for most senior user researchers. Like we're the same as you. We're human beings. We have the same faults and whatever. What keeps you safe from doing this stuff is pilot testing effectively. There's 2 things. My answer is comprised of 2 things. Number 1, by pilot testing something, you're going to start to learn what you learn in between the cracks. You're going to learn how to optimize your inquiry, shall we say? Okay, a pilot test is like let's say consider a beta test for your research. Okay, the second thing, and this is something that I've carried with me since my psychology undergraduate degree, because this is gold, absolute gold. Always design or plan your research with the outcome in mind. Okay, that might be a deliverable, or that might be a set of knowledge buckets that you need to fill up. When you think about having to write this thing up at the end, it really focuses your mind on what the questions you're asking or the way you're structuring your session at the outset. And when you pilot test that, See if you can try to put a quick report together with the sort of data that you're getting out. I hope what you're starting to get a sense of is this is all tweakable. It's all iteratable or iterable, whatever that word is. Right? That. And that's what this is all about, because I don't get it right first time. I don't think Debbie does. I don't think anybody does. In fact, I always get it wrong first time. Maybe I'll use the slightly wrong language, or something's a bit ambiguous, or if I'm scripting a session, a more behaviorally based UT kind of session, I've the journey's not quite right, or there was a button clicked, or a menu missed, or something that screwed the journey up if it's in a particular prototype. So in which case you have to test this stuff. You don't want to find out with your first few users that it's wrong, and especially if that's an unmoderated one, because then it's bye-bye. You can't unfire that bullet, and it's very, very bad and very, very painful. So test everything, and keep the outcome or deliverables in mind, and then by testing it, you should be able to generate the outcome that you need.
Love it. And I'm going to add to that. I wrote down a couple of notes while you were talking. Can't disagree. So a couple of things that I wanted to add. So I'm going to say what Nick said just differently, because I love the idea of thinking about the outcome. And the way that I do that and the way that I teach that to others is two things. Number one, when you're writing questions, and Nick's right, I don't write great questions the first time. We do pass after pass after pass. We rewrite the questions. We reorder the questions. And at my current job, I invite what I call the inner circle, which are like my 8 closest stakeholders. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I have about 40 stakeholders on this project. So I invite a handful of people. I give them comment-only access in my Google Doc, and I see if they have any feedback on the questions. And actually right now we are working on rewording a question because they didn't like the way I worded it, and they were right. So one way might be to give some people related to the project some comment-only access and just say, you're showing them the plan, you're open to any questions or comments people might have, and you may or may not change stuff based on that. So inner circle, number one. I think if I were at a regular job, I might give it to 2 people, but because of the amount of stakeholders I have here, I'm giving it to like 8. So don't take that number as having any meaning other than what's the smallest number of people I can show this to and feel like I've collaborated with my team. So number 2, thinking about the outcomes, like Nick said, I tell people when writing your questions, first of all, read them out loud. How do they sound? Are they too long? By the end of the sentence, do you forget what the beginning of the sentence was? Think about your goals and objectives of your study. If you've written out a nice plan and you've said, by the end of this study, we intend to learn this and this and this and this. When I read these questions out loud, I ask myself, do I imagine that answers to this question are going to give me the information I need to satisfy those research goals and objectives? Keep that in sight. And I've even had some of my apprentices write out some of the goals and objectives on index cards or flashcards and tell them to put them at the bottom of their screen so that before they come up with wild, unrelated follow-up questions, look down at the flashcards. Did the answer the person give you satisfy these research goals and objectives? If not, come up with a follow-up question. If so, keep going. And then also think about, are the questions I'm asking likely to give us answers that will help my larger team strategize and make decisions? Because we want the research to be actionable. We don't want it to just be 4 people said a thing. We want to make sure that we're giving people some actionable suggestions. So do I think I've worded this in such a way where I'm going to meet or exceed those goals and objectives and answer the open questions? And will I get the information that will allow me to give actionable information? So for example, one of the questions we have in our current one, the study we're about to do this week, is what tools do you use to help students blah, blah, blah? Because I work at a university in the tech department, enterprise tech. And in our test sessions yesterday, when Sirocco asked me that question, I just named a tool. I use Thing. And I wanted to see if she would give me a follow-up question or keep going. And I said, make sure if someone says I use tool that you find out how, why. Well, you know, we don't want to. The answer here isn't people use these tools. Love Debbie. The answer is people use these tools for these reasons or these tasks or these situations. So keep asking yourself, did I learn why? Nick, over to you.
This is why user needs are at the center of my universe, and they should be at the center of yours too. Because what we're really asking is what do you have a user need that tool is helping you sate or achieve? That's, you know, I have a need to draw a thing. I use Figma or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You're driving at the need, or I need to use Figma because it does SVG better than something else. You know, there's levels, lots and lots of different levels. Melanie, I saw that question. Yes.
We have another question before that. We'll get to that.
Okay. And in that case, let me just say tag one thing onto this, which was I've written on my notepad the nightmare scenario, right? If you, yeah, I should have been a GP. The point being is the nightmare scenario is this, and this is what will sharpen your mind, if you know what I mean. I've been in this circumstance, and this is called learning the hard way. If you don't do all the things that Debbie and I have just said, you'll be sitting there and it's like, right, I've done all my work, research, whatever the session was. You've now got to write it up. You've done the analysis and it's not matching the research question, the research objective. You're thinking, crap, I've got to tell a story with this. I've got to write this down somehow. I've got to present this to my stakeholders or to whoever. And that's the nightmare scenario. You've put a gun against your own head by being kind of not pilot testing it, not thinking of the outcome, doing stuff. And then guess what? It's literally on hope that you get a good report out of it. And that is stress that you don't need.
And again, why? You know, I tell the story of a research project we did at the beginning of this year, 2023, where our client, a startup, had done some of their own research as well. And so when we came together to talk about our research report, they said, well, we found that a lot of our target audience weren't motivated, so we think our startup needs to build a motivation platform. And I said, we don't believe you need to build a motivation platform, but let me ask you this. In the research that you did you find out why they were unmotivated? And they just kind of looked at each other like that was a question they'd never even thought to ask. They just assumed people are unmotivated. That's the finding. That's the insight. That's the problem we solve. And I said, we found out why they're not motivated. And we learned you're not going to motivate them. We learned that there's a typology who you cannot motivate right now. Their life is too messed up, upside down, bad economy, life situations. They'll be your future customer. Don't focus on them right now. But it was a real moment for them when I said, do you know why they're not motivated? So it's not enough to say, well, I saw people, they did a thing. You want to make sure you're always asking questions and follow-up questions and observing to make sure you can tell your team and stakeholders why people did a thing or why didn't they do a thing. You've got to know the why. Keep digging for the why. Thank you. Great question. We have one more anonymous question, then we'll get to Melanie's question. So I promise we will get there. We still have plenty of time. This one says, do you have a mental or non-mental checklist of things to consider that help ensure your design concept is good, solid, high, works for different situations, etc.? Like just from a perspective of interaction design, psychology, usability, etc. Like assuming we did everything good in research and we know our users' context, need, etc., and we're solving the right problem with the right solution. The question is then how to maximize the quality of the proposed solution before having it ready for testing with users.
Love this. These are great questions today, guys. You guys are killing it. I love these questions. I love them. You've been doing too much UX UI, son. You've been around too many UX UI folk. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to destroy them a little bit more. Yeah, okay. So I say it flippantly, but I mean this kind of seriously. Welcome to the world of real UX. And I mean it with regards to this question. Because the question that you're asking is then how to maximize the quality of the proposed solution, given that you've got all the user needs and context and all the good stuff. That, my friend, is UX. That is UX in a nutshell, is converting research into design, insight into design solution, or at least on my planet, in my perspective, that's exactly what UX is. That's what separates UX from every other design sub-discipline, shall we say. That's your skill. That's the skill that you will develop over time. That's the sort of skill, the sensibility that in the design world, or more visual design, more graphical, more traditional design, that's the sort of thing that you climb the ladder for, to get that producer director sensibility, so that you end up as an art or a creative director, because you have that mental checklist, that sensibility, those senses of what good looks like, or how to achieve a brief's stated aim. We have something similar in UX, but it's unlike that more traditional design thing. And this is why it's such a great question, because this is where UX UI fundamentally differs from user-centric UX. User-centric UX is the skill of the designer is taking that research, that insight, and then working with the designer to iterate a working solution. And that iteration between research, design, test, that's UX. And all of those images that you've probably seen and kind of just thought, whatever, that's the core of UX. It's just really simple. It isn't some big flashy wow diagram. That's what UX is. It's a simple process. And there are way too many people, some very high profile people on LinkedIn with massive followers, who are saying there is no UX process. Don't, blah, 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 and doing people like me down or having disagreements. They're wrong, unfortunately. They're just flat out wrong.
Agree.
And it's causing the most amount of damage to the industry and to individuals. Until we get that basic mechanic of insight into design, research into design, until we get that going again, it ain't UX. Bottom line, no one's going to learn anything. It's fundamental. It's cornerstone. Now, the problem is, because seniors are locked out of the industry, we can't really help kickstart this thing, which is why I'm so vocal on LinkedIn, to get seniors back in the game, so that we can get this whole thing going again. We can show you, mentor you, how to turn research into design. It is a skill. It does take many projects and different contexts and jobs, briefs, to start to understand what to do in what situation. It's highly skillful. AI won't be able to do it in our lifetimes, but we need to be able to transfer the knowledge to you guys to be able to learn how to do it. That's the very bottom line here. Great question. So do I have a mental checklist? Not a mental checklist per se, but yeah, it is. I suppose it is a checklist. You're looking at all the sorts of things that you'd be looking at, but actually you're thinking about the audience. How is this thing going to test? What are the test results? All of that kind of stuff. Because my opinion is just my opinion. That's just my performance and all of that good stuff. It's how does it test? So really, that relationship between researcher and designer, that's because, you've designed a thing, you give it back to your researcher, go test it. Oh, wow, couldn't find the button. All right, let's make it bigger and red or something, right? Test it again. Research, design, iteration. Believe it or not, that is a process. I think I'll leave it there because I think I smashed that one.
Yes, I don't think I have an appropriate sound for that, so I'm just going to give you applause. Yeah. So first of all, agree with Nick that there is a real process. Are there variations of the process? Sure. Not everybody's going to use the same process or even the same process for every project, but there's definitely a process. But to address the question more directly, I wouldn't say I have a mental checklist, but I happened to be in a coaching call this morning with one of the people I coach who is a designer, and they've been showing me this extremely complex data system that they've been working on. And today we needed to talk about some different sorts and filters and stuff that the customers have been requesting. And there was a lot of bizarre complexity to this stuff. And I wouldn't say I have a mental checklist, but I started talking to them about, first of all, accessibility. Make sure that this works for everybody. Don't have hover states that people won't see when they tab. It's not accessible for people who don't use a mouse. And they said, actually, we found that most of our customers, even though they don't have disabilities, are tabbing through our system. And I said, okay, perfect. So get these hover states out of here. So accessibility. Again, we talked about discoverability. Because there were a lot of complex filters and sorts, they were trying to hide them under shapes and icons, but the icons looked informative. They didn't necessarily look clickable or interactive. They looked like they were informative. So I said, now you're creating Easter eggs. Nobody's going to know that they can do this because this doesn't look like it's actionable. It looks like it's just an informative icon. So we need to change the affordance to make sure people understand that this is somewhere where they can take action. When I talked about some different things they could try in its place. So we talked about accessibility, discovery. I also talk a lot to people about simplicity. Obviously, they're trying to take a complex data table and data system, and I said, you have to make it simple. Nobody wants a complex system that feels complex. They want it to just work. They want it to be obvious. No one wants to take a training. Nobody wants to watch your video. Nobody wants to read your tooltip. This has to be easy, logical, intuitive. You could say simple, but normally I say easy, logical, and intuitive. Easy to learn, easy to use. And so those are the things that we talk about. You can look back at heuristics. You can look at other things, and just remember, people shouldn't have to remember how to do it the next time they come in. It should just be easy and obvious every time, even if people don't remember from the last time they were there. So do I have a mental checklist? It maybe, but it's disorganized. Like I don't have the way, like, so, some of you have heard me rattle off lists of things because I say them all the time. Like, for example, I'll easily rattle off, where's my graphics? Where are they? The steps of user-centered design. I can rattle that off. It's something I talk about all the time. Or the phases of a good research project. I can rattle that off because those are processes that I talk about all the time. But I have to admit, I don't have a ready-to-go list or mental checklist of make sure your design fits these things. And I think usability is a great place to start, but usability means 9,000 things. Usability doesn't mean one thing. And so I would say you just have to remember to go deeper than is it usable. For example, this morning we also talked about scalability. They had designed something they said, oh, now we have to add one more option to this. So we were just going to put this icon next to it, and now they have the option. I go, okay, but what happens in 3 months when your team has decided to add 4 things? Are you just going to keep putting hieroglyphs next to it? No, we have to think about, how does this scale? It's only 1 now, but it could be 4 later this year or next year in this sense, because we're at the end of the year. So the scalability is one that I talk to people about as well. Don't just design the thing that works for 1 or 2 things. There might be more things in the future. How would we lay that out if there were 12, 20, or whatever it might be? So I would say these are some of the common things that I'm talking to designers about. But I don't have a list somewhere. I don't have a video on this. I don't have a checklist. These are just some of the things I'm shouting out when I see designs and people are looking for a review. Nick.
Put it another way, just to kind of put a lid on this. There isn't a checklist, right? Or that checklist, as Debbie's saying, changes so wildly. So forget the kind of checklist. And if you just go straight to kind of testing your I say concept, your output, your iterations, you'll learn what those checklist items are really quickly, right? You'll know when people can't find stuff, can't discern something, or something's abstracting something under a certain state, or whatever is going on, or the wrong messaging, or the wrong, the wrong copy. You'll learn that really quickly. So whatever you might have been on your checklist, that's still very top down, if you know what I mean. Checklists are top down kind of a thing. And really, I think you want to put lots more bottom up into it and basically ask the audience, frankly.
And
right?
remember,
just get them to...
you don't have to do UX by checklists and frameworks.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I think the longer you're in this, and again, I don't know how long the person's doing this, so I don't want to insult anybody, but I think the longer I do this, the less I need lists or things like that, because it's kind of just in my fabric.
And you're going to learn that much of what is taught and is out there in the public domain is either overcooked or like sold knowledge. So there's a lot of it's constructive, fluffed out, not relevant, all kinds of reasons. But you ask actual practitioners who really do this stuff, and you'll find a very different and much more real, slimmer story. Do you see what I mean?
I do. I do. Thank you. Our last question today comes from super friend Melanie, who says, Nick, are you planning on doing a session next year about your lessons learned using AI tools for synthesizing research? Do you have more details about when, where? So obviously, Nick, you are welcome to bring that to this channel if you'd like, or obviously if you're doing it separately, we will plug the hell out of it and support you.
So, Rosenfeld Media came to me and said, would you want to do something like this for us? So I'm doing a couple of things for them next March for the Advancing Research 2024 conference. I'm doing a talk which is not related to AI, but I'm also doing a workshop on the following day, which is a whole day, 6, 7, 8 hour workshop type thing, which is all me, all day, all AI. So
you have to physically be there, and that conference isn't cheap, right? So
yes.
Are there options for others?
I don't know about that. Sorry, I'm doing that specifically for Rosenfeld Media. So whatever options they give, it is in New York City. I don't know if there's remote. I don't know how much it costs. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that. I'm just the hired help.
Okay, but it's your content, so maybe, depending upon the feedback you get in March on that, and as your, knowledge and experience with AI grows, maybe you'll be able to run your own workshop.
Yes. Now, what I could tell you is I actually ran a very short 45-minute session for one of my UX teams at my Adaptivist, the company where I work. And it was quite a stark pilot test, shall we say, for this kind of stuff. You don't want to know about some of the lessons learned because they're historical and they're boring. They don't contribute to what you need to know about the state of AI today, right? Historical developmental stuff is not that interesting. Number two, I dare not write this thing until kind of February next year, because if any of us thinks that the way we're using AI today is going to be the same in February is completely bonkers, right? So I've committed to do a 6-hour workshop on something that I've got no idea what shape it's going to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, that's really scary. I like challenges, but that's a scary challenge. It's going to be fun. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. The other thing, Melanie, and everybody else, and I should say this straight honesty, when I said it in 45 minutes yesterday, it sounds really obvious, really straightforward stuff. You'd be like, well, duh, I paid how much money to hear that? Or at the moment, in my world, it's common sense.
Right.
And lots of hard work and testing. But I don't want to overplay it. Unlike the rest of the world, I my interest in AI is to make my life as a user researcher easier. That's all. Not to become an AI expert, become something on social media for AI, any of that stuff. I'm not that. I'm getting old, and I don't like the heavy grinding that is so associated with the work that we do, the heavy lifting. So I'm just personally motivated as a smart, lazy person to have a really intelligent research assistant. That doesn't make me an expert in any which way. I don't understand the underlying models in any deeper detail than anybody else. I've learned a few good tricks. I've learned how to try to keep it honest. But more than that, I don't think you'd be that blown away. I don't think I've got any trade secrets that are like mind-blowing or anything else. And I don't think neither does anybody else, if we're frank. I think lots of people are overplaying it for social media capital. But you know me, I'm a straight shooter and I can't be asked. But believe everyone else is doing that for sure.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly mention, even though we've got to wrap up and run, but I tried a tool a few days ago. I won't name the company, but it's a company you'd all know. And they, when you brought in a research session and it gave you a transcript of it, it then tried to tag your stuff. And it tried to tag things with positives and negative words. This is happiness, and this is aversion, and this is they liked it, and this is a pain point. And I must say that nearly every tag I saw was incorrect. And the funny part was, to test it, I brought in the video we did on this channel, on the YouTube channel, where we interviewed Jordan and Robert about AI. If you didn't see that, I think it was like episode episode 206, head over to youtube.com/@CX-CC and check out our show on AI. We had 2 AI experts who are not from the UX world talking about what we can reasonably expect from AI. But the auto tagging that it did was beyond unacceptable. Now, luckily, we found where we could turn that off so we wouldn't see these tags. But I can imagine someone going into that and going, hooray, look at all this work this did for me. Now I know pain point and aversion and like and dislike. And it was all really crappy. So I just want to remind people, yes, it's great to explore these tools. Try them out. Put them through their paces. But it's also okay to be unhappy with them and turn them off or take a break or wait for the next version, because I am still not using AI in my research work other than the auto transcript, which to some extent is an AI, but I am not having stuff tag stuff for me. I tried some AI tools in Miro and I was not happy with what it did. So I'm going to wait for whatever the next version is and try again. So, Nick, we are interested in your continued journey and thank you for sharing it.
I'll tell you something I said yesterday that I think is kind of a nugget that came out from it. And again, it's stating the bloody obvious. The AI is testing my researcher integrity to the maximum. And I thought I had untouchable integrity. I thought I was like made of iron when it comes to research integrity. I didn't think it was even questionable. I didn't think I could be tempted. I just didn't think it was in me. And then AI comes along and goes, cooey, you don't have to double check this stuff. Just get it done in 3 seconds flat. And it does that to me all friggin' day.
Right.
And it's a nightmare.
Press the button.
And it's chipping away at me. And it's like it's torturing me. It's waterboarding me mentally until I finally break. And I'm not going to break. But this is me. Now, can you imagine anybody else who's more junior and just doesn't have those principles in place? They're just going to be, yeah, friggin', like, great, it's done. Let's ship it. Like, that's all of our worst nightmare. If you think you've seen redundancies today, wait until you see product managers playing the research game using AI and doing all this kind of shenanigans. It's going to go so bad that that'll probably be the nail in product's coffin that it needs to come, but that's a whole nother game. Yeah, so, yes.
Yeah, so we're going to have to run. But, Nick, remind everybody where they can find you and follow you.
You know me, guys. I'm a LinkedIn guy. I'm not active at the moment. I've just got too much other stuff on, and my diary has been bonkers and probably will be bonkers for much of this week. But LinkedIn is where you can get me. I'm not hugely responsive or hugely posting at the minute. I've been meaning to, and I will get back around to it. It comes in kind of waves, either inspiration or lack of disgust or just other shit to do. A combination of those 3 things. So that's where you can find me. That's it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Nick. This was a great session, great questions, great answers, and we finished on time. I'm going to play us out of here and just remind everybody that we've suspended a lot of our streams for this month because people are busy with the holidays, but I'll try to do next Tuesday's Ask Me Anything, even though it's the day after Christmas. So if you are burning with questions, go ahead and send them to deltacx.com/links, the AMA, and we will make sure your questions are answered first next week. So for now, thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody. Be well and see you soon. Bye.